If you're watching this right now, grab a drink, get comfortable, and don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and tell me in the comments, what would you do if the galaxy's deadliest predator stared you down, and you were holding nothing but a snack? Because tonight's story is about the only human who ever survived that moment, and what happened after. The alarms began before dawn cycle, that deep, throbbing tone that meant containment breach. Every species aboard the Ark of Inquiry knew that sound. Amanda was awake. Glass panels hissed open across the upper decks as guards scrambled to activate the dampeners. Plasma rifles hummed to life. In the heart of the ship, in a vault built from metals mined from dead stars, the universe's most dangerous creature moved. Slowly. Purposefully. The Predator. No one knew what it truly was. It didn't match any evolutionary pattern. It could tear through hull plating, outrun a drop pod, and learn faster than any AI. Every empire had lost soldiers trying to study it. The Galactic Council had declared it uncontainable, yet still they tried. Because whoever could control it would rule everything. And this morning, control had failed. Through a viewing screen, hundreds of scientists shouted orders in 20 languages. One of them screamed, "The neural dampeners aren't responding." Another hissed, "Increase sedation gas." But the gas hissed uselessly, the Predator's hide shimmered, adapting, repelling. Then came the silence. That terrifying, expectant silence before something dies. A door creaked. From the maintenance wing stepped a thin, dirt-smudged man in gray overalls, clutching a mop in one hand and a ration bar in the other. His ID tag read, "Human. Jace Rylan. Slave status, expendable." He hadn't meant to be there. He was supposed to clean the lower pens, the ones filled with herbivorous test animals. But a glitch in the assignment system sent him to Specimen Omega. When he saw the warnings, it was too late. The door locked behind him. The Predator turned. Every muscle in Jace's body screamed to run. The creature stood 3 meters tall, all shadow and muscle, eyes like molten glass. Its claws flexed, slicing grooves in the deck. He could feel its breath through the reinforced glass. And still, something in him, the same stupid curiosity that made humans poke things they shouldn't, kept him standing there. "Hey," he muttered, his voice cracking. "You hungry?" The scientists on the other side went rigid. "Is that human talking to it?" someone whispered. Jace tore open the ration bar wrapper. The smell of roasted sugar and synthetic peanut butter filled the air. He'd been saving it for later, the one treat he had left. But right now it was the only thing keeping his hands from shaking. He held it out. The Predator crouched, nostrils flaring. A low growl echoed through the chamber. The containment field flickered as it pressed closer, claws clicking against the barrier. The air shimmered, and for a heartbeat, Jace saw his own reflection in its eyes. Not prey, not food, just something curious. Without warning, the field dimmed. The creature stepped forward, close enough to touch. Every alien observer screamed, ducking behind consoles, expecting blood. But instead of tearing him apart, the Predator leaned down. Sniffed. Then, gently, impossibly, it took the snack from Jace's hand. The sound it made wasn't a growl. It was a soft, rumbling vibration. Like a cat purring if that cat could crush tanks. "Yeah," Jace whispered, still shaking. "Tastes better than metal, huh?" The creature sat. Just sat. The control room exploded into chaos. What did he do? "It's responding to the human. Get security." Jace didn't move. His instincts screamed that if he ran, it would chase. If he fought, he'd die. But if he stayed calm, if he acted like nothing was wrong, maybe it would believe him. So he leaned back against the wall, pretending to relax. "You look like a Rex," he murmured. "Big teeth, bad attitude." "Yeah. Rex suits you." The Predator blinked. Then lowered its head, like it understood. By the time the guards arrived with stun rifles, the creature was lying down beside Jace, tail curled, eyes half closed. The guards froze. The commander barked, "Do not engage. Do not fire." But the Predator didn't stir. Jace exhaled. He'd never realized how loud breathing could sound until that moment. On the monitors, analysts argued in disbelief. "Impossible," said one. "The neural interface doesn't show submission," said another. "Then what does it show?" someone demanded. "Contentment," replied the lead researcher. Jace didn't hear them. His heart was still pounding too hard. He stared at the creature beside him, watching the rhythmic rise and fall of its chest. He'd been a slave for 3 years. He'd seen aliens use humans as test subjects, pets, and jokes. He'd learned to survive by staying quiet and staying useful. But this was different. Every camera was on him. Every scientist watching knew the truth before they dared to say it aloud. The predator, the beast that had slaughtered fleets, had chosen him. A voice came over the intercom. Smooth, controlled, with the cold authority of a being who'd never known fear. "Human," it said. "Do not move. You are now under council observation. Any harm to you will result in termination of Specimen Omega." Jace glanced up at the nearest camera, forcing a grin he didn't feel. "Guess that means you need me alive, huh?" The voice didn't answer. He looked back at the creature. It was staring at him again, jaws slightly parted. When he raised his hand slowly, it leaned forward and bumped its head against his palm. The rough hide was warm, almost soft. The command center erupted in more shouting. One scientist fainted. Jace chuckled under his breath, too tired to process the insanity. "You know," he said quietly, "you and me, we might actually survive this." The creature rumbled again, that low, soothing sound. Then the containment door sealed shut with a hiss. Dozens of scanning drones descended from the ceiling, their lights blinking red as they focused on the pair. Outside, the Council's flagship sent a single encrypted message across the galaxy. "Specimen Omega has submitted, to a human." Inside the chamber, Jace leaned against the wall, eyes heavy, heart still racing. The predator rested its massive head near his boots. Somewhere deep in its chest, it purred again, the sound vibrating through the floor. Jace muttered, "All that for a snack bar? You've got expensive taste, buddy." The lights dimmed to containment mode, and for the first time since the Ark was built, the alarms went silent. Across the galaxy, every species watched the footage in disbelief, and one human, exhausted and half-starved, sat beside the deadliest being in the known universe, completely unaware that he had just changed everything. And the predator? It closed its eyes, content, calm, as if protecting the only thing in the galaxy it couldn't kill. The feed ended there. But that was only the beginning. The footage of the human and the predator spread faster than light. Every colony, every research hub, every imperial court in the galaxy played the same impossible recording. A creature that had devoured armies now lying tame beside a man with chains on his wrists. The image didn't fit any known law of biology or reason. It defied control, logic, and hierarchy, and for that very reason the Galactic Council demanded an explanation. Jace Ryland didn't get one. He was moved from the containment bay to an observation suite, though it felt more like a gilded cage. Transparent walls. Sterile air. Cameras in every corner. His new job wasn't sanitation anymore. It was survival through performance. Each day, under the supervision of alien researchers, he was ordered to feed and interact with the creature now officially classified as Specimen Omega. Jace still called it Rex. The scientists disapproved of the name, but Rex seemed to like it. Their sessions were monitored down to the smallest detail. Jace noticed how the creature responded to tone rather than command, to humor rather than dominance. When Jace laughed, Rex tilted its head. When Jace hummed or spoke softly, the creature rumbled in reply. When Jace ignored him, Rex grew restless, claws scraping the deck until Jace turned back. It wasn't obedience. It was attention. Connection. The aliens didn't understand it. They tested pheromones, frequencies, chemical cues, everything except what actually mattered. Jace realized that what kept Rex calm wasn't power or fear. It was trust. A word most species in the galaxy didn't seem to grasp. One researcher, a tall, amphibious being named Kellare, questioned him daily. "Human, what is the stimulus? Your scent? Your voice modulation?" Jace shrugged. "Maybe it's just the snack bars." Kellare's eyelids blinked sideways in frustration. "Primitive humor does not aid analysis." Jace smirked. "Yeah, well, primitive humor is kind of my thing." Outside the chamber, dignitaries watched from behind reinforced glass. The humans' casual confidence unsettled them. To them, humanity was a low-tier species, adaptable, sure, but insignificant. Yet this slave had accomplished what their empires could not. That made him dangerous. One afternoon, as Jace sat cross-legged in the pen, tossing pieces of dried fruit to Rex, he felt eyes on him that weren't the cameras. A figure in a silver uniform approached, a council overseer. Her tone was clipped, her posture immaculate, the kind of authority that expected obedience as a reflex. "You are property of the council," she said. "The bond you've created will serve its purpose under our supervision." Jace didn't look up. Funny. Usually property doesn't get threatened before lunch. Her eyes narrowed. "Do not mistake tolerance for respect." Rex shifted, a low rumble shaking the floor. The overseer froze as the creature's golden eyes locked on her. Jace raised a hand, calm but firm. "Easy, big guy. She's just talking." The growl subsided, but the overseer's expression faltered. She took a step back before catching herself. "We will ensure obedience from both of you," she said, then left with more haste than pride. When the door sealed behind her, Jace leaned back, whistling under his breath. "Guess we're popular, huh?" Rex exhaled, warm air brushing Jace's face. He smiled despite himself. "Yeah, I know. You don't like her either." In the following days, the council intensified testing. They tried to replicate the connection by bringing in other humans, soldiers, scientists, even psychics. None succeeded. Some were ignored. A few were nearly killed. Rex refused food from anyone else. It would only eat when Jace was there and only when Jace spoke to it first. The council called this behavior inconvenient. Jace called it loyalty. He began to talk to Rex more, not because he was told to but because it felt natural. He told stories, simple human ones, about blue skies and oceans, about dogs and campfires and the smell of rain. He didn't know if Rex understood the words, but the creature's eyes softened when he spoke. Sometimes it made quiet sounds, like echoes of his laughter. Kellare observed this, baffled. "It mimics you. But why?" "Because I'm the only one treating it like it's not a weapon," Jace said. "Maybe that matters." That night, he lay awake in his cell, staring through the glass wall at the dim silhouette of the predator resting on the other side. The bond wasn't just real, it was growing. And he wasn't sure whether that scared him more than the council itself. The next morning, during a routine examination, an armed technician entered the pen without warning. He was young, arrogant, wearing the insignia of the Tsar Dominion, a species that considered humans beneath insects. He sneered at Jace. "Move aside, slave. I'll show you how a real handler asserts control." "Don't," Jace started, but the technician raised a shock prod and jabbed it toward Rex's flank. The device barely made contact before the predator's eyes snapped open, burning gold. The sound that followed wasn't a roar. It was a vibration so deep it shook the chamber walls. The technician screamed as the weapon melted in his hands, the air warping from sheer kinetic heat. Jace rushed forward, arms outstretched. "Rex, stop." The creature froze mid-lunge, claws inches from the alien's throat. Its entire body trembled with restrained power, but it didn't move further. It turned its head, watching Jace, waiting. "Back off," Jace whispered. "He's not worth it." For a long, unbearable moment, no one breathed. Then Rex huffed, stepped back and sat down with deliberate calm. The technician collapsed, gasping. The guards burst in, weapons drawn, but the overseer shouted, "Hold your fire." The specimen obeyed the human. Jace didn't feel victorious. He felt something else, dread. He realized in that instant that every council member had just seen the proof they wanted. The creature could be commanded. Through him. Later, as medics dragged the injured technician away, Jace sat beside Rex again, running a hand along the creature's armored hide. It was warm, alive, steady. "You just made me the most valuable hostage in the galaxy," he said softly. Rex lowered its head until it rested near his knees. For the first time, Jace thought he saw sadness in those impossible eyes. When the overseer returned that evening, her voice was smoother, almost polite. "The council recognizes your contribution," she said. "You and the specimen will be transferred to a secure research division. Effective immediately." Jace frowned. Translation: "You're moving us somewhere you can keep a tighter leash." She didn't deny it. "You've proven useful. Do not confuse usefulness with freedom." Rex's tail twitched, the tip scraping against the floor like a warning. Jace forced a grin, though his stomach sank. "Yeah. Freedom's overrated anyway." The overseer didn't smile. She turned and left, the doors sealing behind her with a final, echoing hiss. Jace sat in the growing quiet, listening to the hum of the containment field. His mind churned with possibilities: escape, rebellion, the inevitability of betrayal. But beside him, the monster he should have feared the most leaned against the glass, its presence calm and constant. Jace pressed his palm against the barrier. On the other side, Rex mirrored the motion, claws curling gently to avoid the surface. For a brief second, the light caught their reflections together. The slave and the beast, two anomalies in a universe built on control. Jace sighed. "They think they own you. They don't even realize you're the only one keeping me alive." Rex blinked slowly, the gesture almost human. The monitors recorded every detail, every heartbeat, every whispered word. The council had all the data they needed. What they didn't have, what they would never understand, was the one thing their science could not measure: trust. And somewhere deep in the ship, that trust was about to become their greatest threat. The transfer began before dawn cycle, under heavy escort. The corridors were lined with armored guards, their rifles humming with lethal energy. Jace walked between them, his wrists cuffed, the faint electric hum of the restraints stinging his skin. Ahead of him, Rex moved inside a hovering containment field, silent, watchful, its molten eyes following Jace's every step. They were being moved to the Council's Central Research Command, a sterile fortress floating in the orbit of a dying red star. It wasn't a promotion. It was captivity with better lighting. When the shuttle doors sealed, Jace caught the Overseer's reflection in the viewport. Her posture was as rigid as ever, but her tone had changed. You will cooperate fully. The Council intends to integrate the specimen into a controlled strike force. Strike force. Jace repeated, his voice dry. You mean you want me to turn him into a gun? She didn't blink. The creature's compliance depends on you. We're merely optimizing the equation. Jace laughed, low and bitter. You can't optimize trust. Rex growled softly, the sound vibrating through the deck. The guards stiffened, but Jace only said, easy, buddy. They're not worth it. The creature's breathing steadied, but the look it gave the Overseer was anything but calm. Upon arrival, Jace was stripped of his personal items, not that he had many left, and placed in an adjoining chamber beside Rex's new containment dome. Every moment of his life now streamed to dozens of Council observers. Even sleep felt like a performance. The new scientists were colder, their questions sharper, their patience thinner. They didn't study the bond. They studied how to exploit it. Command him, said one of the lead technicians during a test. Make him destroy the drone. Jace folded his arms. He's not a pet. He doesn't fetch. The technician sneered. Then he's useless. He raised a control pad, sending a burst of energy at Rex. The creature roared, the sound shaking the observation deck. Lights flickered, alarms wailed. In the chaos, Jace stepped forward, shouting over the noise. Rex, stop. It's okay. The roar died instantly. Smoke hung in the air, thick with ozone. The technicians stared, some in fear, others in awe. Jace's heart pounded as he glared at them. You want to see control? There it is. And it's not yours. From that moment, the Council's interest shifted. They stopped treating him like a subject and started treating him like a weapons interface. Every day became another experiment. Simulated battles, threat response trials, even live exercises against captured drones. Each test proved the same thing. Rex would fight, but only if Jace was in danger. They didn't understand that distinction. Jace's nights were filled with restless thoughts. He'd seen what the Council did to things they couldn't control. They destroyed them. And sooner or later, they'd decide that one human couldn't be allowed to stand between them and their prize. The proof came one cycle later. While pretending to rest, Jace overheard two scientists whispering outside his chamber. Their voices were hushed but not enough. The neural sync extraction is scheduled, one said. Once the data pattern is mapped, the human can be terminated. And the creature? It will follow the next handler once the emotional imprint is simulated. Jace lay still, his pulse drumming in his ears. They thought they could copy him, reduce trust to numbers and signals. They couldn't. But they'd try, and he wouldn't be alive to tell them it wouldn't work. He turned his head toward the glass, watching Rex sleep. The creature's chest rose and fell in slow rhythm, its breath fogging the barrier. For all its power, it was still trapped, same as him. He whispered, "We need to get out of here." Rex's eyes opened immediately, gold light reflecting in the dark. The creature made a quiet, questioning sound, and Jace felt that same impossible connection hum through the air. He smiled faintly. "Yeah, you heard me." The next few days were spent planning, not in grand gestures but small defiance. Jace watched guard rotations, memorized key codes, and feigned exhaustion during tests. He slipped scraps of wire from broken drones into his pockets, hidden under the guise of cleaning. Every move had to look like an accident. When the day of the extraction came, the lab was fully staffed. The Overseer stood on the command platform, expression unreadable. Jace was strapped into a neural harness, cables snaking from his skull to a glowing console. Across the room, Rex was restrained by energy binders that pulsed with blue light. "Begin synchronization," ordered the Overseer. A searing pulse hit Jace's mind. His vision fragmented into light and static. He felt them probing through his memories, trying to peel back the layers of instinct and emotion that tied him to Rex. Every thought, every laugh, every act of kindness was being turned into data. Rex roared, thrashing against its restraints. The energy fields brightened dangerously. Jace could barely breathe. "Stop it," he shouted. "You're hurting him." The Overseer's voice cut through the noise. Continue. Something in Jace snapped. With every ounce of strength left, he reached toward the creature, even as the restraints dug into his wrists. "Rex," he gasped. "Now." The lights died. Every screen went black. Then came the sound, a deep, resonant hum followed by the sharp crack of glass imploding. The containment field failed. The lab plunged into chaos as alarms screamed. Guards rushed in, firing plasma bolts that vanished into the smoke. When the haze cleared, Jace was free, the neural harness sparking uselessly on the floor. Rex loomed beside him, one massive claw resting protectively near his shoulder. The overseer staggered back, disbelief frozen on her face. Jace met her gaze. "You wanted control," he said, voice low. "You got it. Just not the kind you expected." He tapped the console on her belt, a move he'd prepared days earlier. The screen flashed red, containment breach protocol engaged. Across the station, bulkhead doors sealed, systems overloaded, and sirens wailed. "Run," Jace told Rex. They moved together through the collapsing facility, dodging collapsing panels and bursts of plasma fire. The air smelled of ozone and fear. Jace didn't know where they were going, only that every step forward meant freedom and every second meant survival. When they reached the outer hangar, a small scout vessel sat fueled and ready, its engines humming. Jace scrambled aboard, overriding the lockout codes he'd memorized. Behind him, Rex crouched, barely fitting inside that as the ship detached from the docking bay, explosions rippled through the station. Through the viewport, Jace saw the red star flare in the distance, the light reflecting off Rex's scales. They'd done it. Against every law and every empire, they were free, for now. Jace leaned back in the pilot's seat, chest heaving. "That went smoother than I expected." Rex huffed, the sound almost like laughter. Outside, the council fleet began to mobilize. Jace stared into the stars and whispered, "They'll come for us." Rex growled softly, a promise wrapped in sound. Jace smiled, exhausted but defiant. "Let them try." The stars stretched into lines as the ship jumped to hyperspace, leaving the ruins of the council station behind, and beginning a chase the galaxy would never forget. The stolen scout ship drifted between the shadows of broken moons, its engines whispering against the silence of deep space. Inside the cockpit, Jace slumped in the pilot's chair, hands trembling from exhaustion. The navigation screen flickered with red warnings: fuel low, hull integrity compromised, pursuit detected. Every system screamed surrender, but surrender wasn't something humans were built for. Rex sat behind him, its enormous form folded awkwardly in the narrow cargo bay. The creature's golden eyes gleamed faintly in the darkness, reflecting the stars like shards of molten glass. Even now, even free, it stayed close. Jace could feel its presence like a heartbeat through the metal floor. "We've got maybe a day before they catch up," Jace said, his voice hoarse. "Assuming the reactor doesn't explode first." Rex made a low sound, not quite a growl, something softer. It was the same tone it used when Jace spoke to himself, as though listening mattered. He smiled faintly. "Yeah, I know. You'll eat them if they find us. But let's try to avoid that, huh?" He leaned back, closing his eyes for a moment. The events of the past days replayed in jagged flashes. The experiments, the escape, the station burning behind them. Freedom felt strange. Heavy. Like he'd stolen something too big to keep. The comm console crackled. Jace's eyes snapped open as a distorted voice filtered through the static. "Unidentified vessel, this is the Council fleet. Power down immediately. You are harboring classified property. Comply or be destroyed." Jace shut the channel with a single tap. "Classified property," he muttered. "That's us, big guy." The radar showed 3 ships closing in, sleek, silver, and fast. He couldn't outfly them. Not in this wreck. But he could vanish. The asteroid belt ahead offered cover, and maybe, if luck hadn't abandoned him yet, a hiding place. He angled the ship sharply. Metal groaned. Debris streaked past the viewport, chunks of rock glinting with sunlight. Plasma bolts followed seconds later, carving glowing scars through the dark. Jace ducked instinctively as if movement could help. "Hold on," he shouted. Rex braced itself, claws anchoring into the deck as the ship spun through a field of tumbling stone. Jace's vision blurred from the centrifugal force. He could hear the enemy ships adjusting course, their engines howling through the static. One wrong move and he'd be vapor. Then silence. The radar blinked once, twice, and went dark. The pursuers had overshot. Jace guided the ship into the shadow of a massive hollow asteroid. The engines cut. The world went still. He sat there breathing hard, sweat running down his neck. "Okay," he whispered, That's one crisis survived. He turned to Rex, who blinked slowly in the dim light. You know, if I live through this, I'm demanding a raise. Rex rumbled, a sound Jace had come to recognize as amusement. They stayed hidden for hours, the asteroid's bulk shielding them from sensors. Jace scavenged what was left of the ration packs and tossed a bar toward Rex, who caught it delicately between two claws. Watching the galaxy's ultimate predator chew on processed chocolate always made him grin. As he stared at the creature, his amusement faded into something more complicated. It wasn't just loyalty between them anymore. It was something deeper, mutual dependence born from captivity and defiance. They were both fugitives now and both free in the loneliest possible way. He ran a hand through his hair. We can't keep running. They'll find us eventually. The console blinked with a proximity alert. Jace's stomach tightened as a new signal appeared on the screen. Smaller than a warship, faster than a patrol craft. A single hunter. He knew what that meant. Council Bounty Division, he muttered. They sent one of their mind trackers. He remembered the rumors, elite telepaths who could follow thoughts across systems. If one was on their trail, hiding was pointless. He checked the ship's sensors. The hunter was already inside the asteroid belt, closing in fast. Jace stood. Time to move. Before he reached the controls, a sudden pressure built behind his eyes, invisible, crushing. He staggered, clutching his head. A voice slithered into his mind, cold and alien. You cannot hide from the council. Surrender the creature and live. Rex roared, the sound shattering the silence. The psychic grip faltered for a heartbeat, enough for Jace to gasp for air. Not today, he hissed. The hunter's ship appeared on the scanners. Sleek, obsidian, its engines glowing violet. Energy flared at its prow, preparing to fire. Jace lunged to the controls. Hang on, Rex. He fired the thrusters. The ship burst from the asteroid's shadow as a plasma beam seared past, close enough to melt paint. The console screamed warnings. Jace banked hard, diving between rocks, using debris for cover. Each movement strained the failing hull. The psychic voice returned, colder than before. You are insignificant, human. The beast will kill you the moment it's free. Jace laughed through the pain. Yeah, well, maybe it just likes my cooking. He jerked the ship toward a massive stone cluster and slammed a sequence of commands into the panel. The engines whined, rerouting all remaining power into the rear thrusters. The hull glowed red. Rex, I need you to trust me one more time, he said. Rex stared at him, unblinking, then leaned forward and pressed its claws against the cockpit wall, as if bracing for what came next. Jace ignited the thrusters. The ship shot forward, straight toward the hunter's vessel. The psychic pressure grew unbearable, filling his mind with static and pain. He could see the enemy pilot through the viewport, a pale eyeless being surrounded by a halo of energy. It raised its hand ready to crush him. Now! Jace shouted. Rex released a sound unlike anything alive should make, a roar that wasn't just heard but felt. The sound shattered the psychic field, tearing through the void. The hunter's ship spasmed mid-flight, its energy core collapsing inward. Light bloomed, white and sudden, consuming it whole. The blast caught Jace's vessel, hurling it into the asteroid's side. Metal screamed as the hull split open. The impact threw him from the chair. Pain flashed through his body. When the smoke cleared, everything was still. The ship's systems were dead. A slow hiss of escaping air filled the cabin. Jace coughed, vision blurring. Rex. The creature was still alive, battered but unbroken. It reached down, nudging him gently with its snout. I'm still here, Jace murmured. His chest ached with every breath. That was one hell of a roar, buddy. Through the cracked viewport, a planet loomed below, small, green, untouched. A place with an atmosphere. A chance. Jace smiled faintly. We're going down there. Whether we like it or not. Rex adjusted its position, curling around him protectively as gravity began to pull them in. The ship's remains burned through the thin upper atmosphere, leaving a streak of light across the dark sky. As consciousness slipped away, Jace felt a strange calm. He wasn't thinking about the council or the bounty hunter or the galaxy that had chained them both. He was thinking about the impossible creature beside him, the one that could have killed him 100 times but didn't. The last thing he heard was the steady rumble of Rex's breathing, deep and rhythmic, like the pulse of a world waiting for their arrival. Then the light faded, and the two fugitives fell toward a new beginning. The wreck had carved a deep scar into the planet's surface, smoking metal half buried in damp soil. Wind whispered through alien trees, carrying a scent sharp and sweet. Jace woke to silence, his body aching but alive. He pushed himself upright, blinking against the soft, green light filtering through the fractured hull. Above him, clouds swirled like silver mist across a lavender sky. Rex was nowhere to be seen. The absence hit him like a blow. For a moment he thought the creature hadn't survived re-entry. Panic welled in his chest as he staggered through the broken cabin, shouting its name. Rex. Come on, buddy, don't do this to me. A low rumble answered from beyond the wreckage. Relief flooded through him. He climbed out, boots crunching over ash and twisted metal. There in the clearing stood Rex, alive but wounded. One wing hung limply against its side, and deep gouges marked its scales. Yet when it saw Jace, it straightened and huffed as if to say, I'm still here. Jace limped forward, laying a trembling hand against the creature's snout. You stubborn, glorious thing, he whispered. You made it. The planet around them was silent except for the soft hum of life, strange plants that pulsed faintly with color, unseen creatures whispering in the underbrush. It was beautiful, untouched. But beauty was never safety. Jace scanned the horizon. We need shelter. And food. Preferably before someone decides to eat us. They moved together through the alien wilderness, man and monster, limping and bruised but unwilling to stop. The terrain was wild, dotted with crystal ridges that glowed faintly underfoot. Each breath of air felt clean and new, a stark contrast to the recycled oxygen of the station. Jace felt smaller here, yet freer than ever. As they climbed a ridge, Rex paused, tilting its head toward the sky. Jace followed its gaze and froze. A streak of light tore across the clouds, too straight, too bright to be natural. It wasn't a meteor. It was a dropship. They found us, Jace murmured. The Council hadn't given up. They never would. The apex predator was their crown jewel, the perfect weapon, the result of decades of genetic tinkering. And Jace, the disposable slave who'd learned how to tame it, was the one thing they couldn't replicate. He turned to Rex, meeting its glowing eyes. We can't run anymore. Rex's pupils narrowed. It understood. Maybe it had known all along this would happen. By the time the dropship descended into the valley, Jace had dragged the last of their scavenged power cells from the wreck. He worked feverishly, rigging the ship's broken reactor into a crude pulse bomb. If the Council wanted their property back, they'd have to take it in pieces. The ground shook as the dropship landed. White armored figures poured out, silent, efficient, moving with predatory precision. At their center was a tall figure in a black command exosuit. Even at a distance, Jace could see the insignia on its shoulder, the sigil of the Biogen Division. The voice that echoed from its helmet was calm, almost polite. Subject 09. Surrender the specimen. You will be treated with leniency. Jace laughed, a raw, hollow sound. You really don't get it, do you? You can't control it anymore. You never could. The commander tilted its head. It obeyed you. You are an anomaly. That makes you more valuable than the beast. Jace's hand tightened around the detonator. Yeah. Then consider this my resignation. Rex moved before the soldiers could react. A single leap covered the distance, claws tearing through armor like paper. Plasma fire filled the air, searing past Jace as he dove behind a rock. Rex was a blur of motion, fury and grace and power unleashed. Every roar shook the ground. Every strike was vengeance for a lifetime of cages. But the soldiers were endless, their weapons burning through even Rex's thick hide. Jace crawled toward the reactor core, dragging the cable that connected it to the detonator. His chest burned with each breath. Rex, he shouted. The creature turned, blood streaking its scales. Its gaze met his, a moment of understanding, pure and wordless. Now! Jace screamed, slamming his hand on the trigger. The reactor pulsed once, then roared to life. Light flared, white and furious. A wave of energy exploded outward, swallowing everything in fire and thunder. When the dust settled, the valley was silent. The soldiers were gone, their ship melted into slag. The air shimmered with heat. Jace lay at the center of the crater, half buried in ash. The detonator was still clutched in his hand, now scorched black. He tried to move, but pain anchored him to the earth. Then he heard it, the faint, ragged sound of breathing. Rex was alive. Barely. The blast had thrown it to the edge of the clearing. Its chest rose and fell slowly, each breath shallow but steady. Jace crawled toward it, dragging himself across the scorched ground. When he reached the creature, he rested a hand on its snout. You did it, he whispered. We did it. Rex's eye opened, dull but aware. It exhaled softly, brushing his face with warm air. Then it shifted slightly, curling its body around him in a loose circle. A shield, a final instinct of protection. The planet's dawn crept over the horizon, painting the world in gold. Jace lay against Rex's side, his strength fading but his heart steady. The council was gone. The galaxy would assume they both perished. For the first time in years no one owned him. He looked at the vast sky above, at the twin suns rising. "Guess this is home now," he murmured. "Just you and me." Rex gave a low rumble, tired, content, unafraid. Jace closed his eyes. Memories flickered through his mind. The cage, the experiments, the moment he first shared his food with the monster everyone feared. A bond that had started with a snack had ended with freedom. He laughed quietly. "They called you a predator. But you're the only friend I've ever had." The creature's breathing slowed, deep and rhythmic, like the world itself was asleep beside him. As the light washed over them, Jace felt something stir inside, not despair, not fear, but peace. Humanity's smallest survivor and the universe's deadliest predator, resting side by side in the ruins of a world neither was meant to find. Above them the sky burned brighter. Somewhere far beyond, the council would begin their search again, whispering about the slave who defied them and the beast that chose a human over its masters. Legends would spread, stories of the man who tamed death with kindness, who stood against the greatest power in the galaxy armed with nothing but loyalty and a snack. But down on that forgotten planet none of that mattered. There was only the wind, the heartbeat of the earth, and the quiet breathing of a friendship that had changed the universe. And as Jace drifted into sleep beneath the rising suns, the apex predator, destroyer of worlds, devourer of empires, rested its head beside him and finally truly slept.